Today our topic is labor-leisure choice. The objective of essentially studying labor-leisure choice are twofold. Number one is to find labor supply curve. Okay, something that we will use in the later period of this semester when we'll be studying the input market. Okay, so when we'll be studying perfectly competitive input market, or even uh, imperfect but the labor side taken to be competitive, then the labor supply curve that will derive now in this chapter will be used. And number two, which is also a great objective actually, is to find the effect of income tax So these are the two uh, objectives with which we will study this. Now, labor-leisure choice is essentially also an application of classical demand theory. And much like intertemporal issues, if we are applying classical demand theory, then this application will give us a demand curve, and that will be the demand curve for leisure. Okay, and then we will use a constraint which is new to the system, which is the constraint of time. In some cases, uh, authors write this as capital T, but here we'll write 24 because that's the hours available in a day. Okay. Now, T also can be used. These two, the alternative choices, they basically changes nothing because we treat it as constant, which it is. So whenever we are writing 24, trivially it is a constant. But when you are writing capital T, that also is treated as a constant. Now, so we'll have here the constant of time, and we'll express it as something like this: 24 equal to L, and this L is for labor. Okay. In some books, you may find that it is expressed, L is expressed as leisure, but we will follow this symbolism or notation style. So L is for labor, and we'll denote N for leisure. The reason is that we will actually define N as non-work or non-labor, which is, to be specific, more correct, because leisure in its connotation, it has a lot of different kinds of meaning, which may not suit the behavior of an individual when he or she is not working. So we are not going into that problem. So we'll define this as non-work or non-labor. Okay, but obviously the demand curve that we'll get, we'll term it as demand curve for leisure or demand for leisure. And obviously using this constant, then much like intertemporal issues, we will get the labor supply curve. The difference is that in intertemporal issues, we worked with the consumption demand, and then in the end we moved into this structure of savings function. But here we will work with labor supply curve as we go along, optimizing in different scenarios. Okay, and one of the objective also here is to within this finding the shape of or finding the labor supply curve, is to analyze the backward bending nature, or rather backward bending shape of labor supply curve beyond some wedge. So what we are saying is that we will try to analyze why beyond a higher wage the labor supply curve becomes backward bending, which is definitely not the usual shape of a supply curve. So that is one prime intention actually. Okay. Now the progress will obviously include the treatments which we have given to intertemporal issues. Like we'll look into price effect equal to substitution effect plus income effect. We'll look into the depth of it, whether substitution effect dominates or not the income effect. And this specifically will bring in the reason behind backward bending shape. Okay. The treatment of tax is will be done in a different section. All right, so let's proceed. To apply classical demand theory, what we need is first of all a utility function, and from it the indifference curves, and obviously we'll need the constraints. One of them is trivially the budget constraint, and the second is the time constraint, which is already there. Okay, so we'll first make a construct of that using notations, and then we'll just solve it. Then the problem is known to us. Okay. So the important part is how are we constructing the framework. So the idea is this: an individual is choosing between labor and leisure. Okay, and W is the wage which is taken as given for labor. So there is an individual and who chooses between labor and non-work or non-labor. Okay, and the wage is equal to W. So this is given. So that basically implies that we are dealing with a perfect input market. Okay, but we'll talk about that in input market section. Here we are taking wage as given, much like we take prices as given. Okay, now there is also this. So there is total income, which is noted as by Y, and this Y, it goes to buying consumption goods. Now we are not differentiating between which goods and all. Okay, so in general, consumption goods, and we are also assuming that price of these consumption goods, so let's say Py is equal to 1, by which we mean that Y is also the real goods. What is the advantage of that? The advantage is obviously that since we are not going to concentrate in the change in the price of consumption good, okay, we have taken it fixed. So we removed one variable. But the biggest help is that the utility function will be U equal to U of, now it will contain Y. And what is the other? The other is non-work, okay, or leisure. So N is for leisure. Okay, so an individual enjoys the consumption goods that he or she buys, and then the time that the individual does not work. Okay, so that brings utility. All right. Now the first constant that we have discussed is the time constraint. So what is the time constant? 24 equal to N plus L. And then comes the budget constraint. Now about the budget constraint, we are going to look at two variations. So variation 1 is that the total income is equal to wage into labor plus Y star. What is this Y star? This is inheritance. So something that you have received. So this inheritance is a global word. It can mean a lot of things. It doesn't only mean something that your family has given you. For example, it can mean a gift. Okay. It can mean scholarship. It can mean a lot of things. But the essential character of Y star is that it is uh, you get it without getting to without working. Okay, that's the scenario. So in a question, it will not be written as inheritance. Okay, it can be given in many terms, and one of the famous is obviously scholarship, then comes gift. So anything that you get without working belongs to the inheritance and will be treated as a constant. So that is variation 1, which is obviously more general. The variation 2 is pretty simple. It's basically that where we ignore Y star or where we assume that Y star to be 0. Okay, so that basically simplifies our problem. Now a word or two about W. So what is W? First of all, we know that W is the the wage. But much like the kind of interpretation we chose or we went for, for interest rate or rate of interest in the topic of intertemporal issues, for W here also we will go for an interpretation of that. So it will become the opportunity cost. So opportunity cost for leisure, which is basically foregone wage, and thereby it becomes the price of leisure. Okay, so look into why this interpretation is important to us. But this is the interpretation that if you enjoy leisure, if you are going for an additional unit of leisure, then you are not going for additional unit of labor, and then you are not receiving W. So in that sense, enjoying leisure comes at a cost of the wage that you lose. So by that, it becomes the price of leisure in terms of opportunity cost. Okay. So obviously, this will mean that higher wage implies higher price of leisure. So higher wage implies higher price of leisure, and in that sense, obviously it becomes a very important. It serves our purpose, or it will serve our purpose when we look into the price effect, because we look into the price effect of uh, leisure. Okay, so what is the price of leisure? That is W. So look into the fact that if W increases, how does it affect leisure in both in the sense of substituting it with income, and obviously the income effect. Okay, so now we'll move into a standard structure. Now we can write that. So I've constructed the problem of the consumer that is needed. So what is it? So the problem of the consumer is maximize y comma n, u equal to u of y comma n, subject to, now there are two constraints, right? So subject to 24 equal to n plus L and y equal to WL. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to make it one constant. So how will it be done? So substitute this in this equation. So 24. So substitute in place of, so we are going to bring this rather. Okay, let's do the opposite. So we're going to bring in this in y equal to WL. Okay, so what has happened? Y equal to W into L is equal to 24 minus N. So our budget constant becomes Y equal to 24W minus NW. Okay, and we'll write this after which side change here. So the constant for us is y plus wn equal to 12w. So what I'll just repeat. So we have substituted this equation within this equation y equal to wl. Okay, and then we have just expressed it. So y equal to w into 24 minus n, which leads to 24w minus nw. Then we have taken this nw on the left side. So you have now our constant, and this is our budget constant, obviously. So this is consumption good, right? Which appears here, y. The price of it is 1. So apparently we have written nothing. And then the second is non-work, which comes at a price w. So it is the price of non-work. Okay. So here we have our utility maximization problem. So now we can solve it using Lagrangian, as long as this utility function is quasi-concave or ICs are strictly convex to the origin. Okay. So now I'll not go into the details of it because you know it. So using Lagrangian method, so much interested in the equilibrium condition. Lagrangian method, the equilibrium condition is, obviously it is not true that to obtain the equilibrium condition you need to use Lagrangian method always. The equilibrium condition stands as it is, but anyways we are assuming it to be quasi-concave. So using Lagrangian method, the equilibrium condition is, so MRS y comma n, which is basically minus mu y mu n equal to 1 by w. Okay. All right. Or alternatively, if we write, or the other thing in which we'll be more interested is that mun by muy is w. So this is a more result in which we'll be more interested. Okay. All right. So this basically boils down to the fact that slope of IC at equilibrium equals slope of our budget line. Slope of the budget line. Okay. So just to say, if we differentiate it, so dy plus w dn, it becomes 0. So dy becomes w dn with a minus. So dy dn, it becomes minus w. All right. Why this is? We just did it because this means that if we increase, so if we increase wage, okay, then budget line becomes steeper. Budget line becomes steeper. Okay, so that's what it is. All right. So we are going to remember this. Why? Because obviously this result, it is going to be useful when we'll be solving for price effect. Okay. So if wage increases, then budget line becomes steeper. All right. Now, obviously the SOC remains same. Okay. So let's look at it in the diagram. And the diagram is also very, very simple. All right. So first of all, let us look at the diagram for optimization, and then we will go into the construction of demand for leisure and supply of labor. So first of all, the diagram changes. Here we write the time constraint. Okay. So in the x-axis, we are going to measure non-work in this direction, and we are going to measure hours of work in the direction of origin. So if we move into the on the right side, the non-work increases, and as non-work increases, so decreases the hours of work. Okay, so that's our first change compared to the other optimization diagrams that we have drawn. Obviously, here we will measure y. Okay, so now we have assumed in our system that y star is 0. So that means the budget line, wherever it starts on the y-axis, it must reach this point, okay, where time constant intersects the x-axis. It must always reach this point. Okay, so let us get the first budget line. Okay, so let's say this is our budget line 1, and it is drawn against some W1. Okay, now where will be the optimum? It's the usual scenario. So whenever wherever IC becomes tangent to the, so let's say E1 to be this point. So here our equilibrium at W1 is E1, and here the non-work is N1. So our non-work is N1, okay? And trivially that gives us that so at E1, our H1 becomes 24 minus N1. So this is how we are going to draw the labor supply curve, okay? So E1 determines N1, and N1 in turn determines H1. Okay, now to draw the supply curve, we need at least 2 equilibrium points, correct? So let's just say that, assume that W1 increases to W2. So as we have noted here, the budget line becomes steeper. Remember that even if it becomes of any shape, it must reach this point of time constraint. So let's say here is our E2. Okay. So this becomes our N2. So as the price of leisure increases, the amount of leisure chosen reduces. And as leisure reduces, labor increases. So at W2, or rather we'll write this with W2 at E2, which is our new equilibrium, what happens? N2 is chosen and N2 is less than N1. Hence, H2, which is 24 minus N2, is greater than H1. Okay, so that's how it works. It's pretty simple. Now we are going to look into the demand curve that is generated by all of this. All right. So the drawing of demand curve remains just the same. So here we are measuring N. So N2 here, and then N1 here. So first the wage was lower. So let's say W1 is here. So this is our N1. And on the right side, we are going to draw the labor supply curve. So here also W on the y-axis in both cases. So it is our W1, so it goes like this. And if N1 is this much, let's say 24 minus N1, okay? So N1 is bigger here, so L1 will be smaller. So let's say this is our L1, okay? And then at a much higher wage, which is W2, N2 reduces. So one of the equilibrium point is here, which generates this one. Another is here, where N2, N is reduced. So that means L will increase, and let's say L increases to some L2. Okay. So give a proper notation. Let's say these two are our small letter E1 and E2, and that generates our capital letter E1 and E2. on the right hand side diagram. And then what we are left with is connecting the dots. So if we connect these, this will give us the demand for leisure. So this is our demand for leisure or non-work, right? And this is our supply of labor. So this is our supply of labor. Okay. So what we just did is we used the fact that L is equal to 24 minus N. We subtracted this N values at each level of 24 and we obtained the labor supply curve. And by that, here we see that as N is a function of W, so this labor supply curve, which I'll denote by LS, is also becomes LS of W. And given the diagram, LS first derivative is positive. So given the diagram, this line is upward sloping, right? So when we'll be doing the price effect, analyzing the price effect, we'll see that it is not going to be upward sloping always, which is the more kind of trivial when we are working under classical demand theory. So this is the case with which we will be happy. But anyways, so this is what we just did. We constructed a problem of constant optimization in terms of utility function and time and budget constraint. And then we used the Lagrangian method or whatever is appropriate to find the solution. And the optimality condition remains the same. So the slope of IC and must equal the slope of budget line at the equilibrium points. Okay. And then from there, we derived the demand curve of N much the way we derived the demand curve of any other good in consumer behavior. And then subtracting the values from 24, we obtained the supply of labor. Okay. So now let us take an example. So let's say, to be more specific, let's say the utility function of the consumer is our very old Cobb-Douglas, which again follows CRS. So A and y to the power A and a to the power n minus A. Now I have written the budget constant in general case. How will it be? It will be expend y with price 1 and then n with price w, and then 24w is the highest income that you can enjoy. So we're going to maximize this subject to this budget constraint. All right, just like any other problem. And then find the labor supply curve. And after that, we're going to put A equal to 1 by 3 and find what is the L star. Okay.